day and welcome to this introduction to Convio Go. As a reminder, this program is being recorded. Also, as a reminder, you may type your questions throughout the program into the Q&A box using the Q&A tab at the top of your screen. Or to ask your questions verbally, you may press *1 to be placed into the phone queue. All questions will be addressed at the end of today's presentation. And now I would like to turn the program over to your host, Mr. Patrick Hansen. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Courtney, and thank you, everyone, for joining us today for this introduction to the Convio Go program. My name is Patrick Hansen. I'm a senior interactive consultant with Convio. I'm a member of our Client Success Services team, which is an interactive agency, one of the largest interactive agencies in the country serving exclusively the nonprofit community. I've had the opportunity in the last 3 years at Convio to work with clients like Feeding America, National Relief Charities, and others, and I currently manage the Convio Go program, which we're going to talk about today. We're going to take a look at the objectives and goals for the Convio Go program, which should be goals and objectives which are familiar to you all, and I'm sure addressing challenges that you all face as an organization today. And those include growing your email list, communicating regularly with your constituents, your donors and supporters, and raising funds and using the internet as a mechanism, as a vehicle for doing that. So what is the Convio Go program? Convio Go is a combination of Convio's online fundraising software, our best-of-breed technology and tools, combined with a proven action plan, which is a strategic plan focusing your efforts and your time on activities and campaigns that we have found to be effective through our work with over 1,200 nonprofit clients over the last 10 years. Combining that with a team of your peers, other nonprofits and nonprofit professionals just like you, and Convio coaches, me and my staff and others here at Convio, members of that interactive agency that have experience running online campaigns and managing interactive content and interactive communications for nonprofits. The goal, of course, is tangible results today, as well as the knowledge for you and your staff to build on the fundamentals that we really laid down for you in the course of the Convio Go program. This is the framework that we look through, that we see the world through in terms of our lens as we think about online relationship building and growing your base of support for your mission using the internet. And that really consists of 4 key areas: outreach, motivation, action, and loyalty. This is online constituent relationship management, or ECRM. In the course of the Convio Go program, everything we do fits into these 4 categories and is meant to build your relationships with your constituents using the web and making the most of your Convio tools and making sure that using those tools, you've got the fundamentals in place to build those relationships and grow your program online over time. The Go program consists of a proven 4-part plan. And as you look at this, you can we break it down from quarter to quarter over the course of a year, working together, you and your nonprofit staff, with us and our Convio Go team, working hand in hand through these 4 quarters, not necessarily in this sequence, depending on when you enter into the program. We break it down into, initially in the first quarter, getting those fundamentals set up and in place on your existing website, launching a welcome series. We'll talk a little bit about that later on. And then we transition into a fundraising campaign, and from there, working on a house file building campaign and wrapping it up with a year-end fundraising campaign. So depending on where you come into the program in the course of the year, kind of dictates the order of these efforts and what we focus on first. But every client in the program, in the Convio Go program, does these 4 activities, or 4 activities like these, over the course of your first year with Convio and using our tools. So let's break it down and take a look at the program objectives, starting with growing your email list. Now, one thing that you can kind of do to get a sense of where you're at is take a look at Convio's online marketing nonprofit benchmark index study. This is a study that we publish every year, and one of the things we look at in that study is across all the different kinds of nonprofits, if you group them together by sector or by vertical, you can take a look at the size of the email list on average for each of the nonprofits in that sector. So depending on what kind of mission you serve and what kind of constituency you work with, you can kind of place yourself in one of these sectors, I'm sure. Now, looking across these benchmarks, you can get a sense of how you compare in terms of the size of your email list relative to your peers. Now, one thing that we found time and time again is that there's a correlation between the size of your email file and the total amount of dollars raised online over the course of a year. And you can kind of get a sense, just looking at the Convio benchmarking study, of, again, where you might fall given the size of your email list relative to your peers and relative to how others with a comparable size file have done and performed online in terms of the total dollars raised. So you might want to go take a look at that study. That's at convio.com/resources. You can find that benchmarking study. So given this correlation between the size of your email file and the total dollars raised, of course, there are other influencing factors: composition of your file, how many donors do you have already, how responsive is your constituency to online interactions, online communications, and online solicitations. But given this general trend and this general correlation, most organizations then are faced with that challenge of, well, how do we grow our house file? Well, there are a lot of ways to do that. There's a lot of tactics, a lot of options. In fact, so many that it can be a bit overwhelming. So where do we get started? How do we focus? That's a key strategic question that many organizations face but don't necessarily know how to answer. In fact, you can even blow this list out of the water by looking at all the universe of ways of interacting or engaging with constituents online, using Web 2.0 social networking media, using a variety of sites where your constituents may gather, may congregate to talk about you and your organization. But before we get off into left field and looking at all the creative and cool and flashy ways that we can reach out to constituents, one of the things that we ask you to take a look at in the Convio Go program is just first and foremost your homepage. I mean, just on your website, on your homepage today, are you doing those basic fundamental things that you could be doing in order to capture your constituents' email address, capture their information, and bring them into your house file? That's one of the very first things that we look at in the Convio Go program, is really leveraging your existing website to maximize your house file growth. Taking a look at an example of this from America's Second Harvest of Wisconsin, you can see what they've done, and they've done this using tools from the Convio Go program. It is just a very straightforward but very clean, very nicely presented registration sign up on their homepage. And you can see you can enter your email address and sign up to receive updates and information. You can also click right there, featured prominently, donate to support their organization. Or you can click to tell a friend. 3 just simple, basic fundamentals that every site should have. Those are some of the starting points that we provide to you in the Convio Go program. We provide those to you as a set of code snippets and widgets that you can integrate into your existing site seamlessly using your design and using the look and feel of your existing website. Now, one of the things, once you've got just a couple of basics in place to capture email addresses and to engage your constituents and get them on your list, something to be aware of is that over time, you lose the ability to communicate with some of those constituents just because initially they're most engaged with you, but over time, their interest will fade. Their open rates will tail off. Their engagement will decline over time. And what that translates into is a real opportunity early on when they first interact with you online, whether it's by making a donation or signing up using a simple registration process on your site. We really have the opportunity at that moment when they first interact with you to kind of set our best foot forward, to really establish our organization, establish ourselves, establish our brand. Let folks know how they can get involved and the ways that they can support your mission. As you can see from the chart we're looking at here, that opportunity really exists within the first 1 to 2 months. And after that, we slowly kind of lose the opportunity to engage those same constituents. Of course, we'll still open our emails occasionally, and hopefully there may be other points in time where they get more engaged again. But certainly that initial interaction is where we have the greatest opportunity. Well, what that translates into in terms of the Go program, one of the things that we make sure we do up front is to set up an automated series of welcome messages. It's really what we call a relationship pathway, in this case for new constituents. And what we're doing is, again, putting our best foot forward, really establishing that relationship, but doing it in a way that's automated, that's tied to your site, that's dynamically generated based on when a constituent comes and interacts with you for the first time. Once this is set up, it's something you really don't have to think about ever again, or maybe once a year you might update the content of that welcome series. Let's take a look at what that actually visibly looks like. We use a set of established templates, and you're seeing kind of what that vanilla flavor template, so to speak, looks like, as just a good structure for communicating with your constituents. We take that basic template for a welcome message and apply your branding, your colors, your look, your feel, and your organization's presence to that template so that what your constituents experience reflects the branding of your organization, conveys the warmth of your organization, and invites additional actions from those new constituents. Now, the way that we actually go about working through this with you is we provide a whole set of guidance materials explaining what kind of content is good content to be thinking about in your welcome series messages. We do this using just a simple Word document that has kind of some of our experience and knowledge captured into it. We also point you to lots of examples of what other clients, other Convio clients have done to create this kind of communication pathway for their new constituents. So you get lots of examples, lots of guidance, and lots of materials to work from in creating your content. But the content, of course, is really up to you. We'll answer lots of questions. We get on the phone and kind of work through this with you and your peers in the program. But really, you have the opportunity to say what is most exciting about your organization. You get to focus on the content while we get you up and running in terms of the way that this is actually implemented into your site and implemented online. Now, an example of the kind of impact that this can have with Oklahoma Medical Research Foundation is a Convio Go client. They launched their new constituent welcome series just at the end of 2008. They had a pretty good history of getting donations online in the past, 4 or 5 years of just using a donate button, but had never previously collected email addresses from their donors. Well, we worked with them first and foremost on that email capture, just that simple registration first step, as well as the phased registration around that. Because what we do is we don't just provide kind of a sign-up box. I mean, that's simple enough. We certainly provide that as a starting point. But anyone who interacts with that first sign-up step actually follows down a path of not just taking that first step, but then potentially providing you with additional profiling information, their mailing address, for example, maybe a little bit more about what they're interested in or how they'd like to get involved with your organization. This is all part of their initial web interaction and web experience in signing up or interacting with your website for the first time. That flow includes the third step, which is also viral sharing, just telling others about your organization as well. The thing that we've studied and we just know is that for whatever reason, if today is the right day for a constituent to get involved with your organization, it's not only the right day for them to take a first step, but it's the right day to ask them to take a second step and a third step as well. And that's when they're most likely to take those additional actions. Now, what we set up in addition to that web flow, that web registration, that series of web pages and built into your constituent relationship CRM tools, in addition, we then automate this 2-part welcome series that runs every week. The first message goes out for new constituents, let's say this week, and then if they've been on your file for 2 weeks or so, then the next week they get the second follow-up message. And again, as you can see here, this is using the branding of Oklahoma Medical Research Foundation, using a warm welcome from their president, as well as conveying other actions that constituents, new supporters can take. now that they've just joined your online community. So what do the results look like? Just as an example, without changing really anything else in terms of their donor experience for Oklahoma Medical Research Foundation, at year-end 2008, just by getting this best practices registration flow, a best practices donation form, and a best practices welcome series in place and working on their site, they were able to raise in the fourth quarter of 2008 more than they had raised in the entire previous calendar year for their organization online. Not only that, but they received one major gift directly in response to those welcome series messages. And that's having a direct impact on their total online fundraising. So let's go to kind of the next step in terms of growing your file, house file building. Not only do we give you some of those baseline tools to build into your existing website, but we also step you through a process of actually running a house file building campaign. What does that look like? Well, let's, again, kind of break it down. First of all, we work with you through a set of guidance materials. We've got just a baseline best practices structure for an online house file building campaign. It's a basic viral awareness and outreach campaign. We've got kind of two sample structures that we use. One is an online pledge, kind of a soft advocacy, raise your hand, I'm with you, I support you, or I'm willing to help you work on these issues. The other option is more of a giveaway. In other words, if you sign up, you have the opportunity to win something or to maybe get a premium of some sort that is a giveaway on some monthly basis or in the course of a specific campaign over a given time frame. And of course, we work with you a bit on just how to think about this, how to approach those kinds of campaigns, that style of campaign, and how to integrate it with what you might be doing offline. Maybe you're doing some creative things with auctioning, some cool artwork, or maybe you've got a gala or an event that you want to help promote or that you want to really make sure your constituents are aware of. We tie these online activities into some of those offline activities in order to really create an overarching campaign that can have some great impact for your organization. Now, an example of this specifically would be Gillette Children's Hospital Foundation. This is a client that we've been working with for over 6 months now. And their house file building campaign really focused on an opportunity that they had to promote their annual gala last year. Just a snapshot of kind of what this organization looks like. They've got one staff member dedicated part-time to really their online program. They had never communicated by email as an institution with their donors or really with anyone previous to coming and joining the ConVioGo program. They had less than 2,000 email addresses on their file, on their email file, and they had raised less than $25,000 online in the previous fiscal year. So how did they use the structure of the ConVioGo program and that house file building campaign? Well, they used that house file building opportunity as a way to promote their annual gala event. And their event was a pretty neat event. It was included a dinner, and it was a performance of Wicked. And not only did they promote the opportunity then to win tickets, it was a giveaway, so they gave away 2 tickets to this gala event. They promoted that opportunity online using the structure of the ConVioGo house file building campaign. They then additionally worked with some of their cause marketing partners, some business relationships that they had, to chaperone some messages or shepherd some messages to some partner lists of about 50 or 60,000 supporters of those separate businesses. So it wasn't their own list, but a partner who's willing to promote it to the partners list. So that brought some great visibility to the event, some great visibility to the opportunity to win tickets to the event. It got their brand in front of a large audience. And the result was, over the course of a multi-part email campaign, not only did they have just a great response from their own constituency online, but a great response from some of those partner list members as well. In fact, they were able to promote the event so well that it was sold out by a couple weeks prior to the event itself, and it turned out the only way you could get tickets within the last week or so was to actually win them through the online giveaway, which was pretty neat. It's pretty exciting. Now, what that meant as they actually looked at the impact was through this campaign, as well as adding those fundamentals to their existing site, as well as just starting to communicate more effectively and more regularly with their supporters with e-newsletters and other campaigns and solicitations and communications, they were able to grow their total house file by over 400% in a course of about 6 to 8 months of working with Convio, with the Convio team in the Convio Go program. In addition, their year-end fundraising in 2008 raised more in the fourth quarter, again, than they had raised in their entire previous fiscal year. So a pretty impressive impact for them, some great results as well. Now, we're starting small, but we're thinking big. So the Convio Go program gives you access to Convio's tools, get some of those fundamentals in place, helps you if you're starting from a small email list, maybe several hundred or just several thousand email addresses, but you're starting with the right platform and the right technology. Rather than starting from a technology that you're going to outgrow, maybe point solutions that get clunky once you've got too many addresses, or a platform that you're just going to, eventually you're going to outgrow, Convio's platform is a platform that you can continue to grow into and expand on, the platform that can scale with you. And that just comes, we know from our experience in working with, whether it's the Brady campaign or Feeding America or American Red Cross or any of our other 1,200 clients. We serve clients who have email lists from a couple hundred constituents up to a couple 100,000 and even several million email addresses. We provide that scalable technology solution. Now let's talk about communicating regularly with your constituents, because once you grow your list, of course, you want to not only just have a larger list, but actively cultivate those constituents that have joined your cause online. And why is this important? Well, again and again, you could even take a look at our Wired Wealthy research and some of the studies that we've done that's shown that really donors don't just want to hear from you when you are talking about the need. They also want to hear from you when you talk about the impact. So we don't want the description from your donors to be, well, I only hear from your organization when you want another gift, yet another solicitation. We know from the direct mail model, every time you send a direct mail, it's very expensive. You have to ask. Maybe you send a newsletter through the mail, and maybe that's less solicitation-oriented, but it's very expensive. In the online channel, you can communicate more frequently, more regularly. You can communicate that programmatic information that would be just too expensive to communicate regularly offline. So how do you do that? Well, an example, just one example, would be an online e-newsletter. And we also work with our clients to do e-blasts, also simple e-card communications or stewardship communications from the organization to your supporters. We've got a variety of templates that you can use to communicate regularly with your constituents. And in the structure of the program, we encourage you to do that on a monthly basis. And we provide the resources to help you do that on a monthly basis. So starting from a simple best practices e-newsletter example, this would be one of the templates that we provide. And again, you see the kind of the vanilla flavoring of it here. We apply your branding, your look and feel, using that best practices model to communicate effectively with your supporters about what's going on right now and what might be of most interest to them. Now, this is a simple starting point, and again, with Convio's tools, you can get much, much more sophisticated over time. You can segment and target your communications. You can build rich profiles of your supporters and work towards the day, the ideal that we all strive for, where we can really target the most effective information to the right audience and really speak in a very targeted way to our constituents and supporters' interests. Of course, this is just a starting point, a simple newsletter, and really building a profile, building a relationship over time, but it's the right first step, and we get you started on that path to building a more sophisticated program over time. Again, we do this using some simple guidance worksheets and best practices examples. We use some Word documents that include a variety of best practices information. It points you to examples of other e-newsletters, of what other clients have done in the Convio Go program and beyond, to really just kind of get your creative juices flowing and help you think about, again, what's the most compelling content? You get to focus initially with the Go program on that content, on your messaging online. We will build, deliver, and track the responses, feed that back to you in terms of the metrics that we look at together and benchmarking and tracking the results, and allows you to, over time, gradually take ownership of producing those newsletters in the Convio tools and get comfortable and familiar with how to do that in a way that's most effective. A great example of really getting some of those online e-newsletter communications and just basic relationship and cultivational messages going. Yellowstone Park Foundation, they joined the Convio Go program early in 2008. They were one of our first 5 pilot clients in the program. We're up to just over 30 clients now. But they've been sending e-newsletters regularly to their constituents for the first time through the Convio Go program. They hadn't sent communications like this at all previously. Combining their e-newsletters with their regular campaigns, both a house file building campaign and 2 fundraising campaigns, they were actually able to pay for their entire 3-year investment in Convio through the first-year online fundraising results, looking at that as fundraising above and beyond what they had done the year prior without Convio. So really some fantastic results for them there. And just an example of what's possible, certainly everyone's results vary, and Yellowstone has done quite well in the Convio Go program, and we strive to really work with every client to work towards that end and hopefully see similar fantastic results. But really just a clear example of how effective it can be to just start communicating regularly where you weren't able to or you didn't have the right technology to before. Now let's just take a look at some of those fundraising campaigns and online solicitations. One of the things that we walk you through in terms of some of the webinars that are a part of the structure of the Go program, every couple of months, really every 2 months in the program, we get together, we take a step back with you and your peers in the program together, and we just talk about the why, if you will. A lot of time is spent as well in the how to do things in Convio, how to effectively market your organization online, but we also take time 6 times over the course of the year, 6 webinars, to really take a step back and say why. An example of this would be just talking about why do we run a year-end fundraising campaign. And an example of the kind of information that we look at, and just looking at the impact online and how online fundraising is skewed. Really, online fundraising is heavily skewed towards the November and December timeframe, those last 2 months of the year, where you may see a similar skew offline. This data, these results, are looking at all Convio clients, looking across our 1,200 clients over the course of really 2006 and 2007. And what you see is the total fundraising really skews heavily towards year-end, and that November and December account for 43% or more of total online fundraising for all the nonprofits that we serve. Well, what that means is if you aren't running a year-end fundraising campaign as an organization, and if you aren't doing that effectively online, you're missing a major opportunity, perhaps missing a major portion of your total online revenue that you could be raising online. Well, we do that in the course of the Go program. We also run at least one other active online fundraising campaign in the course of your first year in the program, where we're working together hand in hand in a structured way. Now again, we use a best practices approach on how to pull the content and substance of these campaigns together. We use templates that we've developed that are based on our experience working with a wide variety of clients based on what we've seen to be most effective in the past. But initially, for your first year in the program, again, you can really focus on the content. We provide you with the guidance. We provide the structure of the campaign and really the format for how that campaign is going to unfold in the course of November and December. You really focus on what's the message. How are we tying this into perhaps the messaging that we're using offline? And how are we making the most compelling case possible for giving at year-end or at any other time of the year? A great example of this would be Hope and Heroes Children's Cancer Fund. They're also a Go client, and let's just take a quick look at their year-end fundraising campaign for 2008. They have 2 staff who can sort of part-time dedicate some effort to their online program. They had a history of doing some offline events, but no online support for their past before joining the Go program. And they really had some compelling stories to talk about the impact of their work, but really no vehicle for online support in the past beyond just a simple donate button. So in terms of their year-end campaign, again, you see here, much like that multi-part communication sequence for Gillette's house file building campaign, here you see an example of a sequenced online solicitation campaign. It consists of 3 touch points, the first being just a launch to the campaign, the first solicitation. The second being a stewardship touch point, a holiday e-card, holiday greeting, really wishing you happy holidays from the organization. So cultivational, but just keeping their organization top of mind at your end among their constituents. And then the final message, a last chance to give reminder that literally went out in the last couple days of the year, December 30th, 31st, to remind folks that for tax purposes, it's your last chance to give in 2008. Now additionally, there's another piece of this puzzle was what you see in the middle there, a campaign widget, which is just a solicitation button, but a bit of code that we provided that could be used and that Hope and Heroes in fact used in their email stationery so that all their organizational messages that they sent out had that in the footer of their email. They used it on their website to promote the campaign, and you could use it really anywhere on the web. You could use it on your MySpace page or on your blog in a variety of ways to just promote the giving opportunity at year end. Now, one of the things that Hope and Heroes also did was they tied the messaging of this campaign into their offline solicitations. And something that you don't necessarily see here, but is part of the actual structure of these campaigns, is that individuals who donated in response to this first message received the second stewardship message, and it was that stewardship cultivational e-card not only then spoke to them as a happy holiday, warm, welcoming message, but also acknowledged them specifically and directly as a donor. So it was conditionalized for donors versus non-donors. And this third and final message of the sequence, in fact, if you donated at any point in the course of the month of December online, you didn't receive that third solicitation message at all. If you hadn't donated, however, online, then you did receive that third solicitation message. So again, a bit of audience segmentation, some simple conditionalization, simple in the grand scheme of things in terms of what is possible with Convio, but for most of my clients, for every client that we've worked with in the Go program, and for most nonprofits, fairly sophisticated in terms of the structure of the campaign, and really a best practices model that most organizations would struggle to work through on their own right now with the tools that they've got available. Now, in terms of their results, again, just a great example. Hope and Heroes joined the Convio Go program in July of 2008. They launched all those fundamentals that we've talked about already, a simple registration flow on their site, an email cultivational series, welcome series for new constituents. They launched a couple of additional initiatives as well. They used the Convio Personal Events module to launch an online complement to some of their offline events. They also launched an initiative with the Convio Personal Fundraising platform and modules in order to enable some of their supporters to tell their stories and do some peer-to-peer outreach and fundraising to support their organization. Both of those additional initiatives kind of soft launch at the end of the year for them in 2008 and are really going to be heavily promoted in 2009. Now, what they had saw in terms of results for Hope and Heroes was that for just their year-end campaign in 2008, with that integrated online-offline campaign, the total campaign raised 3 times as much as they raised for their year-end campaign in 2007. So again, just a great example of some very solid results using the structure of a best practices-based program to really enable their online program as a complement to their offline program and offline efforts. Now, in total, for 25 clients in the Go program in the course of 2008, during their time in the Go program, they raised online over $1 million. And that was just in the course, for some of those clients, more than half of those clients had been in the ConvioGo program for 6 months or less. So again, coming back to those fundamentals, getting just the best practices approach in place and getting the fundamentals in place for you and your organization online to give your donors and your supporters a good experience when they come to your site and interact with you for the first time can have a significant impact on your organization and your total fundraising through the web. So breaking it down, and I won't go through every single one of these bullet points, but the Go program really includes a lot. We get those fundamentals in place, and there's a lot to that. That's how we spend the first month or so getting that all squared away. Then an email house file building campaign, an end-of-year campaign, another fundraising campaign, also regular communications, and getting those newsletters, e-blasts, and e-cards out to your constituents and supporters over the course of your first year and doing that regularly. We also, as I mentioned, have best practices webinars, expert office hours, just a variety of resources that we provide. Additionally, something I haven't mentioned yet, but I find to be one of the most exciting aspects of the program is we provide you with benchmarking that goes above and beyond the benchmarking I referred to earlier, which benchmarks all of the Convio clients that we have, all 1,200 clients. One thing we do additionally within the Go program is we benchmark you against your peers. So we benchmark you against all the other clients in the Go program, and then we also benchmark your results relative to your peers that are working through the same course of events as you are in that first year where my team is working closely with you and your staff to go through that structured best practices program. Now, if you look and just take a snapshot, again, this is from Yellowstone Park Foundation, and we won't go into this right now in more detail, but certainly if you want to in Q&A, we can pull up some more specific examples. But this is looking at a full year in the ConvioGo program, just pulling together all the communications, not even all the landing pages and donation forms and everything else that we worked through in the course of the program. This is what you would actually be able to look back on, having worked through the Go program, and show to whether it's your board or to your executive director to say, this is what we were able to accomplish. These are all the communications that we sent out in the course of the year. This, coupled together with your personalized benchmark reporting, showing how you've performed relative to your peers, gives you a very tangible sense of what you were able to do in the program and how your results compare to your peers who are working through that same model. Now, I've mentioned it before, in terms of our consulting webinars, one of the things to just kind of think about are a couple of things, in fact. Does your organization really have the time to follow industry trends, to look at and figure out what are successful models for fundraising online? Do you have benchmarks or ways to summarize and look at that and really accurately measure yourselves against your peers? In most cases, and for most nonprofits that I've worked with, the answer is no. And that's where really the ConvioGo program fills those gaps for you and helps you identify how you're performing relative to your peers and gives you a chance to work with the experts, work with the folks here at Convio who do and are challenged to run creative online campaigns day in, day out, year over year, working hand in hand with our clients. We bring that knowledge and experience to bear in the work that we do with you all through the course of the Go program. One of the other ways that we do it, beyond that sort of why question that we get to in the webinars, is the how. And really another exciting aspect of the Go program are our expert office hours. And what these are is once you've gone through and worked through sort of the initial configuration phase, which is about a month, and once you've started to get into the rhythm of transitioning from just getting those fundamentals in place to starting to focus on regular communications and marketing content, we start to get together on a bi-weekly basis, you and your peer group in the program. It's usually you and maybe 6 to 10 other organizations getting together every other week for a total of about 20 sessions over the course of a year, we'll actually get our experts, one of our experts, on the phone with you and your peers to do just a Q&A session. This is more informal, where the webinars are more structured and we look at industry trends and best practices. These expert office hours are really kind of an informal opportunity for you to just ask the questions that have come up in the course of the program. Maybe you're trying to do something in your Convio tools for the first time. You're working on sending your first email communication on your own, or you want to work with your existing donation form, copy it, and create a new form for a capital campaign or for some other initiative that you want to be able to support and run on your own. We hold your hand a bit. We'll get on the phone every 2 weeks as an opportunity for you to spend that time with a Convio expert, someone who's done this again and again, and really take a look at how to do that in our Convio tools, how to actually walk you through, in many cases, your own tools. We'll go in and show you how to do it through your instance of Convio, and maybe even work with you to set it up during that session on your site. And again, beyond just some of that how-to, this is an opportunity to keep your online program top of mind, to be thinking about the content for your campaigns and content for your communications. We really take this as an opportunity to kind of have an ongoing touch point and coach you through this process over the course of our year together and make sure that you're meeting the milestones and accomplishing those objectives along the way. Now, another resource that we make sure to make good use of in the course of the Convio Go program is the Convio Go section of Convio's online community. Now, the Convio community is a discussion board, but within that space, we've got a dedicated area that's just for Convio Go clients. It's moderated and monitored by the Convio Go team, me and my staff, and it's an opportunity to dialogue with your peers. And it's also an opportunity, if there's questions that come up that are unanswered in that space, I and my staff will actually respond and make sure that you're getting answers to your questions, and whether it's a how-to question or a best practices question. I've even had some great questions like, what kind of opt-out rates are other clients or other nonprofits seeing on their donation forms? And I and my team, in a case like that, for example, will actually go and research the answer. We'll go pull data from across a variety of clients and come up with a meaningful metric and use that as an informative way for you to, again, measure yourself relative to your peers. Now, one of the things that many of my clients and many nonprofits in today's economy want to do is make sure that you're mitigating risks. You want to make sure that if you make an investment in a technology, that you're making the most of it. And one of the things that we do, that my team's highly, highly focused on, is really kind of checking off along the way to make sure that for every program milestone that's a part of the Go program, whether it's your Welcome Series or a particular campaign or those regular online monthly communications, we monitor your progress, I and my team, along the way, and where we see that you've maybe missed a step or missed an opportunity, we'll start to reach out, coach you back on track, make sure you're staying focused, and work through whatever challenges you're facing as an organization to try to make sure that you're, again, making the most of your investment, making the most of your Convio tools. Our commitment is to your success. We ask you to commit to the Convio Go plan, and together there's a lot that we can accomplish. So what does that virtual team look like in terms of those coaches and folks and experts and the individuals, whether we're running the webinars or on those office hours? Our staff and your virtual team consists of product specialists, folks who help get your Convio tools up and running, configured in the best practices approach, interactive consultants who lead the best practices webinars and sessions, virtual administrators. These are folks that we rely on within the internal team. If you submit your content to us, we've got that 47-member interactive agency behind us to help get all that content or those campaigns produced, to get you test messages that you can review and get all that out the door for you. You've also got access to Convio's support. You can call our support hotline. You can interact with support through our online ticketing process. You have access to your Convio tools pretty much from day one. You've got the ability to go in and use those tools to make new donation forms, send emails out on your own, but you've got the structure of the ConvioGo program along the way as well to make sure that if you're running out of time or if you haven't had the chance to really sit down and think through or learn how to use Convio's email marketing tools, you've got us to rely on in the course of your first year, where you can transition over time to taking more ownership of those tools and doing more on your own. The other thing that you've got access to, another important aspect of your virtual team really is your peer group, and that is other fundraising professionals like yourself. These are, in some cases, executive directors, depending for very small organizations. We do have several executive directors that participate in the webinars, even sometimes in the expert office hours. In other cases, it's maybe the communications manager or a combination of the person who's responsible for communications and the person who's responsible for really constituent data and database management and hygiene. Those are typically the folks that are involved in these programs and involved in the webinars, the discussions, and your peers that you would have access to as well. Lots of times, we'll take a look at how to run a house file building campaign, and now that we've had 30 clients go through this, for example, already, we'll start to point you back to kind of alumni of the program, folks that have come before you and done exactly what you're trying to do, and they really are available in many ways and oftentimes to be a resource to you as well, whether through a community or by contacting them directly to get a better understanding of what they were doing online and how they were able to see great success. So just to kind of, as we wrap things up here, key questions to think about. Does your organization, do you believe that the Internet is strategic? And if you do you have the right tools? Do you have a plan? Have you had difficulty in the past executing to an online plan? If that's the case, and if you're kind of nodding your head and saying, yeah, I'm not sure we've got the right tools, I'm not sure we've got the right plan in place, not sure we even have a plan, the ConvioGo program is your plan. The ConvioGo program can be your strategic choice to move forward with confidence in using the web. Do you have limited resources, and would you rather focus the time and effort that you do have available on producing really good quality content and over time take ownership of a set of web tools, the Convio tools specifically, that you can grow into and scale over time? Do you have difficulty reaching consensus on how to get started? And do you believe that learning best practices from folks who have done it many a time before, and even your peers who are maybe trying to do it in new and creative and innovative ways, do you see that as a key to your success? Really, one of the things that I've really found satisfying about the Go program is just taking this as an opportunity to create a more collaborative space for nonprofits and nonprofit professionals, especially in their use of the web. It can really be a lonely process to try to figure out and chart a course for using the web strategically. The ConvioGo program overcomes that barrier and overcomes that challenge by connecting you with your peers and connecting you with experts. If those are the kinds of questions that you have found yourself and your organization facing, then the ConvioGo program is for you. At the end of your first year, you'll have a list, just like we've showed from the Yellowstone Park Foundation. If you stick with the program, you will accomplish a lot. You'll grow your email list. You'll start thinking systematically about converting new constituents to donors. You'll start thinking in a more strategic way, in a more structured way, about how to run campaigns, about how to maximize fundraising at year-end or at other times of the year as well. You'll get a much better understanding of how to measure your success and how to compare that to your peers. And you'll have the foundation not only of our technology, but also your capacity, and really building the skill set that you need to use your Convio tools with confidence to build a program going forward and to manage that potentially on your own. That is one of the goals of the program, is not just to create a bigger pond to fish from online, but also to teach you how to fish. Now with that, I'd like to pass it back to the operator and give everyone a chance to ask questions, whether the questions came in through the chat, and we'll take a look at those in just a minute, or we'll also take live questions. So with that, I'll pass it back to you.